right, so I know we got brought to a very abrupt ending last week.
Sorry about that.
So we're gonna do our best to try to slim this down to try to get everything in about 45 minutes, so that way we can spend a little time together at the end and get out and let the other people come in, so we don't have.
They're not coming.
They're not
They're not
coming?
coming.
That's only once a month.
Oh, okay.
They're not, yeah.
We were like talking today, like we watch that clock, make sure it.
You're okay.
It's
Okay.
our book club here,
Yeah,
and they have a meeting once a month.
okay.
And the only reason they wanted, because those poor gals from the library are loaded with books.
Sure.
And they were sitting out there trying to.
Yeah, no, now we know, okay.
That's why.
All right, good.
Relax.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so, last week there was a little bit, we had a question, I don't remember who asked the question or not. About the book itself and about writing the story. And so we wanted to clarify this week to let you know that, again, this is a book club as well as a workshop. We use the book to learn how to write, and we follow it as we read the book. We learn different things about writing our own story. So, and eventually I will learn everybody's name. We were talking about we need to make bookmarks for everybody, but it also takes, you can take it out and put your name. It's a name thing too. But I'm sorry, what was your name?
Your name?
No, your name.
Oh, my name,
Yes.
Marcy. Marcy.
Marcy, okay. That's my aunt's name, Aunt Marcy, yeah. Okay, so Marcy was talking about, before you guys came in, that first of all, she said she loved the book, so I'm sorry, she's our favorite right now. But she was saying she loves how Goddard uses so much detail to explain what these other ladies were wearing and, different hats and everything else. And as we were explaining to Marcy, that's why we're doing this. So as you read along, you can see the amount of detail that is put in to the description of each one of those characters that enters the story. And we're hoping that this inspires you to do the same as you're writing, to make sure that you bake in all those details of the people you're writing about, because those are gonna be important. Imagine fast forwarding 50 years from right now, and everything you've read so far about the different outfits. Do you think people in 50 years from now are going to know anything about those, even brands, or those, imagine what they're going to be thinking about when they read that. Even 100 years from now, let's hope that someone's still reading our book 100 years from now. But it gives them a glimpse back to that day. And our book actually gives you a glimpse way back even further as far as the trends and stuff go. So make sure you're doing those details. So first thing we want to do is just take the first maybe 10-15 minutes of today, especially since we're not in a hurry anymore, and let's talk a little bit about the book. How's everybody liking it?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah? What do you think of the characters so far?
I do. They're interesting.
Yeah? Any questions about?
I want to know what caterer they use.
Well, in Savannah Valley, all that stuff is just a phone call away,
Yeah.
right?
It's like here.
But to your point, that's the reason that obviously food and drink is a very vital part of this book was that is my husband's comfort. He loves to cook. He's the cook in our family. I mean, I can make spaghetti or tacos, but if we want something better than that, he's the cook, and he just enjoys it. And that's kind of your calming. That's something that's important to him. He loves following a recipe. He loves trying recipes, tweaking them. So food and drink was something that we felt was wanting to be put into our book because that represents you.
That's right. It is. It's my passion. That's where I become happy. Like I can have the most stressful day possible, and when I stop by the grocery store and get what it is I want to make that night, and come home and just once I pour myself a nice glass of scotch. I know Goddard drinks brandy. That's not.
It's too sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. I like scotch. But in our book, we were trying to disconnect ourselves directly to the characters. So his passion for brandy is my passion for scotch. But I love to pour a glass of scotch when I come home at night, you know, just a nice little bit. And I just drink as I cook. And I'll throw on some jazz music. Even my 10-year-old, who you would think would hate that scenario, just loves it. She does her homework to jazz music. So, and so that's when I slip into my happy place, is when I'm cooking for my family, got my little bit of scotch, got jazz going in the background. Yeah, I used to own a restaurant, so I'm a foodie. I love to entertain. I love all that stuff. So that's why I love to entertain, but I have to be forced to entertain. And that's why you can see in the book, Goddard was forced to have a party. Because I won't personally throw a big party, but this one is quite happy to throw a party and make me cook for everybody, because she knows I love it. So that was kind of how we got ours in
But
it.
you noticed he said he didn't serve his Louis the 13th
Yeah.
at the party.
Yeah, I don't share my good stuff either. I'm just...
I paid it, and it's now $3,000. It comes in a leather box
Yep.
that's hand stitched with a baccarat stopper.
Yes,
To
and it's
use that
crystal, and
for
and the
crystal,
bottle
yeah.
is crystal. Yes, yes, I know. It is a. So for me, for brandy drinkers, that's like the where you want to get to, right? For me, is a Macallan 30 year, so it's also about 3,500. Actually, I think it's way more than that now. I don't own a bottle. I hope to for my retirement gift when I'm all said and done. So that was his gift to himself, right? So that I've always told her that my gift to myself will be a Macallan 30, and that'll be mine. That'll just sip on every once in a while to thoroughly enjoy. So that I love that you guys are picking up on all these little things, and we get a chance to explain what it means, why we wrote them in there, and what it means to us. So yeah, love that. What else?
About the book?
Yeah. Any other things you read that you're like, why did... Oh, you know what? I think you will find a mistake in the book. Let's see if anybody found it.
What?
There's a mistake in the book, and I have no idea how or why we did this.
Oh, I can't remember it. I forgot now.
But you'll learn we're not champagne drinkers. When they opened up the bottle of champagne,
Oh.
they used a corkscrew.
That's
We're wine drinkers. We use corkscrews to open up stuff. You don't use a corkscrew to open up the champagne.
No.
Somebody in our last book club caught that. They're like, "Hey, why did you use a corkscrew to open a champagne?" I'm like, "Huh? I don't know. Nobody would do that."
We don't drink champagne.
Yes. So yeah, that was interesting that made it through.
So that's kind of the fun part. And then my grandparents owned a deli also, so food and restaurant. My grandma was a caterer, and my grandpa just loved talking to people at his deli up in Olive. So the food industry had been something that was important to both of our lives, and so that's kind of why we wanted to talk about that kind of thing and throwing a party. Every year we throw a New Year's party for our friends and our family. It started out with like 6 people, and now it's whoever
That's a
wants
lot.
to come can come. Is kind of it's a lot. He makes amazing steak and crab. We play games. It's just my daughter's almost 11 now. Since she was 2, the goal was for her to stay up till midnight, and she has. And so that we love. We're very homebody type people, and I don't know if that's how you guys. We like to be home. People have asked us, "What's your favorite restaurant to go to, or where do you?" We like to just be home with our family, and that's kind of really important to us. And so we kind of wanted to showcase Goddard doing that in his environment of just entertaining. We feel the most comfortable when people are at our house. We love having people at our house, and just me personally, just enjoying that more intimate setting than out at a or at a restaurant. That's just me personally. What about you guys? Do you prefer that, or do you like to, we have a lot of friends that like to just go out. No? Home? Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy like special holiday meals and all the families there,
Yeah.
and, you know, they know it's a special occasion besides eating.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And you have special memories of things. My twin grandchildren each wanted a turkey leg, so I have pictures of them eating their turkey legs. I don't know why they thought that was cool. They were about 4.
So, one of the things, we've, a couple of you have said, you know, you're having trouble getting started, trying to figure out one event to write about, right? So your homework was to write down, I think, what did we want, 5
I think
events
so,
or
yeah,
something?
yeah.
But, so one of the things you could write about is, what is the best party you've ever attended or thrown? Does anybody remember a certain party where you're just like, oh my gosh, that was an incredible night. Everybody was just dressed to the nines, and they had this amazing music playing, and the food was amazing. Or did you personally throw a party where you were just like all the detail that went into it, and it went off without a hitch, which never happens. You know, so that's something that you could be thinking about an event in your life that you can write about. And usually, if you think of a party, it really helps you with the details, because you read about all the details that went into the party planning or the party at Goddard's. But that's an event you could think about and write about. Now, the other thing is that what you've read in the book so far is that Goddard just wanted to have a nice, quiet breakfast with his tea and be just left alone. That doesn't happen, of course, but that is me to a T. When it comes, I get up at 4:30 every morning just to be alone. I love my coffee in the mornings. I write, I read the Bible, I journal a little bit, I might even do some emails. I work out, and the rest of my family gets up at 6:30. So I have 2 hours of just quiet to myself every morning. I love it. It's my favorite time. Sorry, honey. Favorite time.
Even on the weekends.
Yep.
I mean, it's every day.
Yes. So,
And if he doesn't get it, his mood is very different throughout the day. He's like, it's habit, and if you don't, it throws him off. And my daughter, both Caitlin lived at home too. We all just get up. He's got this meticulous routine every morning, so it's pretty funny.
yeah, same as Goddard. So another thing you could think about is to think of an event that you might want to write about is, where is the most peaceful place you've ever enjoyed a breakfast? And I'm assuming that we've already talked to a few of you that traveled a lot, so that's got to be some pretty amazing places that you've watched the sunrise or had a breakfast. I know for us, one of the most amazing places was on our honeymoon, which was a mess to begin with. We weren't even supposed to be there. We were supposed to be in
St. Lucia.
St. Lucia. We wound up in Jamaica, on the northern side of the island, because there was a hurricane coming through, and all this stuff. But anyway, we would wake up in the morning, and we had this balcony, and we would every morning have breakfast out on that balcony, and it was just the most peaceful place. And the food was amazing. It could have been gross, who knows? But the environment in which we were eating it was just amazing. I could remember everything we ate. I could remember the coffee that we had. It was Blue Mountain coffee, not the same as Green Mountain. I can promise you that. I was hoping it was. It's not. It was just, to me, that was just like, I remember that breakfast. And so that trip and that breakfast might be something you can write about. Another thing is, you all got to meet Larry. Larry's a character, isn't he? So I will tell you a little secret about Larry. And this is the fun thing about writing fiction, is that when we were writing our book, I was writing about all the people that when I was going through my tragic time of when I had to sell my business and I had lost my purpose and identity, all the different people that were coming into my life and all the different things they were saying to me. And the Mark Victor Hansen team, they kind of said, okay, this is nice. And they were always very polite. This is nice, but they're all saying and doing the same thing. Your reader's going to get bored about reading the same, the same people saying the same things. So what if we took all those people and combined them all into one crazy character? And so that was kind of fun to sit down and think about all the characteristics of these gentlemen that had come into my life to help me, and picking out little things about each of them and combining them into one crazy character, Larry. So Larry is actually a combination of about 7 different guys in my life. So, but what we wanted to illustrate by Larry is, who is a Larry in your life? So again, if you're looking for that one thing to write about to get you started, an event, who is your Larry? Who is it that is somebody that is always showing up, always encouraging you to do something, maybe crazy, maybe not so crazy? Who is it that maybe when you were growing up kept getting you in trouble? Who is it that no matter what was going through in your life, no matter how far apart you were, just showed up with no questions asked? And then when they did show up, what were they like? Larry obviously showed up with an entourage of people, and he's kind of this crazy character. But so who was a Larry in your life? Any other questions or any other conversations you want to have about the book itself?
That's a tough one. I mean, I will say, not creating that, but having that person, your quote unquote Larry, that could take some time, because when we were going through, when you had all those people, you could have written 5 or 6 more people at that point. So that's going to be a little bit challenging, is to kind of narrow it down, especially if you are writing that nonfiction, because you're going to have your spouse, family, significant others, friends, coworkers, all of those people, depending on what your story is about. So that one might be a little bit more challenging, and Rick and I are here to guide you and help you if you want to share your story with us, and we can kind of say, oh, you've mentioned this person a couple times, tell me a little bit more about them. So if you want our help, we'd be more than happy to do that, just to kind of peel back those layers a little bit, to kind of figure out who your Larry is in your life, because I know that was challenging, because automatically you think of somebody, then you think of somebody else, and then you think of somebody else. You're like, whoa.
Yeah, but it's also key that when you're thinking of those people, to go back to that page you have with the characters on it and write their names down, because it's people you probably want to come back to and talk about later. So that's where we talked about, as you start to think through this, it's going to trigger other thoughts, and go back to those pages and write down different events, or write down different characters, different settings. We talked about your trip. To Africa. Write that down underneath your settings. That trip to Africa would be an amazing story to talk about. Like I said, the book is there to have fun to read. Hopefully you enjoy it, but it's also there to kind of get you thinking a little bit about each section after we talk through it. So, all right, let's do it. All right, so if you flip to if you open to tab 3, so we're on week 3, on the second page there, we start talking about connecting characters to your story.
Oh, hold up. This page, if you want to look up, because we're on the second page, under tab 3.
Yep, go to the second page. There you
Yep, second page
One
on
more.
tab 3. First page is always just the reflection of the book, and then this is the workshop part, is always the second page. It kind of helps.
Yeah, and I after each class, just so you guys know, after each time we do this, we come up with a new way to make it simpler or to better explain what we're doing. So like last week, I made sure I went through the new versions of this. Will have page numbers on them, so we can tell you exactly what page to go to. All right, so as you're going to read chapters 6 through 8, in chapters 6 through 8, you're going to see Goddard start to really connect with the residents of Savannah Valley. He experiences their corral. He goes into town for pizza with his new friends and learns more about them. And he joins Maureen for breakfast after he sees how he could use a friend. After she sees he could use a friend. So you're going to start to see how we start to. So the first, everything you've read so far has been talked about the setting of Savannah Valley, and it's introduced these characters. Now we're going to start to connect these characters to our story, and you're going to start to see that. So this week, as you read chapters 6 through 8, think about these two questions. Who are the people in your story? Your readers will want to know details about the people you mention in your story and your connection with them. This is your opportunity to tell your readers about the friends or families that influenced your life. So, you were just mentioning about the event you were at, the hospital. We don't want to get into what they do at the hospital, but these different characters in that one story you were talking about. This is where you could go off and talk about each one of those characters and how they connect back to your story. How they came into your life, what were they like, what did they wear, what were their characteristics like.
And this is good because like most of us, I know, with my grandparents and my parents and even us, when we have, the basis of the story, right? Like you said, your daughter had twins?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we know like the basic, the meat of the story. We kind of know that. What we're looking for is the work, like the potatoes, the other stuff that goes around that character and that setting. So what else was going on? We know basically they had twins, but then what else was going on? What was the time like? Who else was involved? What other things happened? That's the kind of stuff that we're trying to connect the people to the story, because you want them to go hand in hand, that your readers don't get lost and go, well, what does this person have to do with the story? We want to take each person that you feel is super important and you want to share about, how do they reflect back to that meat part of your story? Okay, so you're kind of filling in your plate per se, because you got the middle part, you got the good stuff, you kind of know where your story is. You want to fill up your plate with all the other fun stuff to go together to make that meal.
Great, now I'm hungry.
I'm sorry. When I taught high school, that's how we did it. And my teenagers were like, I get it, Mom always puts the meat, but then she has to put the salad and the vegetables and I'm like, yes, fill in the stuff, and it worked.
It's not helping, I'm still hungry.
Okay, well, I'm sorry about that. You got to cook yourself a meal because I don't cook, so.
The second thing we want you to think about as you read chapters 6 through 8 is, why are they vital to you and your story? The information you give your readers about these people will help them understand the influence they had on your story. By telling a short story or description of who these people are, you will allow the reader to understand why they are important in your story. So we gave you some examples here. So if you were writing fiction, which I don't think anybody is, but in the fiction format, this is where you get to show the why behind the characters in your story. You get to illustrate through storytelling how others were instrumental in your life. So for an example, Maureen helps Goddard wrestle with the death of his wife over breakfast. Maureen said to Goddard, "Not at all. Why do you think I invited you here? It took a long time for me to get over my husband. I still miss him, but I'm living. The people I've met here are like me. They understand fears, loss, watching your youth slip away and not knowing when it happened. You're a part of that circle now. I think of Sydney, Patrick, and Linda as my new family. How long will I have them? I don't know, but they're special because they made me realize it's okay to be happy. So in that example, it is really showing how Maureen is playing a very important role in Goddard's life right now by really helping him and coaching him through this time of loneliness and despair. Now, in an autobiography or the memoir, if you're writing like this is your chance to inform your readers of the importance of human connection and the roles others played in your life. So, an example, my grandfather. Paul, my grandfather, was instrumental in my upbringing. He taught me the importance of work ethic. I spent countless days following his shadow around the farm where we grew up. He seemed to have had 20 red and black plaid flannel shirts that he wore like a uniform. His only accessory was a wood grain pipe that, if he wasn't smoking, had tucked safely away in the breast pocket of his shirt. He was a tough man, a strong man. Even though he was not one for words, I knew that he loved his family. So that's just a brief description of my grandfather, of who he was, and the things I remember about him. I always remember he wore this black and red flannel shirt, and I know he didn't wear the same shirt every day, so that's why I swear he had 20 of them. But it's the only shirt I ever remember him in. And his pipe, I loved his pipe. He would sit there and he's not smoking. He had his finger and he was like pushing it down, and I loved the smell of it. And he would put it in his breast pocket, and I just remember as a little boy following him around the farm. We grew up on a farm, and we were always walking fence lines, and if any of the cattle got out, we had to trace back to where it got out. And I just remember every day getting up and following him around the farm, and was just mesmerized by him. And he taught me early what work ethic looked like, right? I mean, that man got up every day and he put in a hard day's work until he went to sleep that night. And so, and again, even though he was not a man of many words, he was very quiet, but I knew that he loved us. So these are the things that I remember about my grandfather, and as you see, that's how I wrote them, by tying them all these details in. And how he connected to me was he was the man that was instrumental in my life in teaching me about work ethic. You get up, you work hard, you go to bed tired. So that's an example.
Any questions about that? Any questions about how to connect people? Because when you're thinking about the people in your life, any thoughts? No? Okay. I just want to make sure, because that's, as a reader, when you share, that is, I think, when you think of books and stories, that is actually, in my mind, the best part to read about. Settings are fun, but the human connection is what makes you can't put that book down, right? Or can't turn off that movie, at least when I'm going through that. So think about that. That is the stuff that draws those readers in, that they will remember your book and come back to it for that reason, because they felt the goal is for them to find that exact connection with those people, just as you did when you were writing them. You want them to feel the exact same connections that Maureen and Goddard are feeling here, that, yeah, I really feel that. Or the way Rick felt with his grandfather, like, wow, that's a very influential person in his life. You want your readers to feel that exact same thing. Okay? That's the goal.
So, if anybody wants to share a particular person in their life, we can kind of walk through this exercise a little bit. Is there somebody that was extremely influential in your life that you would want to write about?
I'd say my sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about her.
Well, she has since passed, but we talked on the phone, especially her last years, and it always made us feel better after we had spoken to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just a wonderful person.
What was, what color hair did she have?
What color hair?
Yeah,
Red.
red hair? Ah,
Hazel eyes.
hazel eyes. Ah, hazel eyes and red hair. All right.
Yeah. And she had 4 boys,
4 boys.
nice family, yeah.
So what was it about, so what was a characteristic about her that really stood out to you, that you admired?
She was always kind to everybody.
And that was,
Everybody, she was kind to everybody.
and that was something that
And very
you admired?
generous.
Yeah.
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 Older or younger?
Pardon?
Was she an older sister or a younger sister?
Older.
Older.
Right,
Okay.
Yes. So yeah, I guess she influenced me, and she was working, I was in high school, and she would let me wear her clothes,
Mm-hmm.
and I was voted the best dressed wearing my sister's clothes. Yeah, so,
What was something she did that, you said she was very generous. What was something she did that was so generous that you witnessed that just really still moves you today?
they always had candy, candy for everybody,
Always a candy.
yeah. And gifts, like graduation gifts, and baby gifts, and they're always very generous.
Yeah. So what was your sister's biggest accomplishment in life, do you think? Did she get an award anywhere? Did she win a contest? What was her biggest celebration, you think, other than her family?
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, 4 boys. 4
I
boys,
think she was
she's
just-
getting her award.
Yeah, she was just a nice, generous person.
Mm-hmm.
Nice dinner.
I don't think that there was a highlight in her life. It's just how she was every day.
Well, then that's probably the highlight, is that she was just this soothing, even person all the time.
Right.
There was no real highs, no real lows.
Right.
You could really count on her, and that's somebody everybody wants in their life, right? Not somebody that's just this rock, this steady person that no matter how panicked you are, could always calm you down, or no matter how sad you might be, could always lift you up, right? Because they're always right there. You knew you could count on them at
Right.
that time. So what would be your fondest memory of something she did?
It's just our conversations,
Mm-hmm.
She always made you feel good.
So you said that you got voted best dressed wearing her clothes. What were her clothes like? What were these?
Oh, she was in the business world, so it was a lot of suits, sweaters and suits.
Were they like
And high heels.
Ooh,
high heels?
yeah.
No, I didn't wear those to high school, but her clothes I did.
Were they brighter colored or more toned down?
More toned down. I
More
think.
toned down, just real
Yeah.
subtle. So, anything else you could tell us about the clothes?
But they were mostly suits, mostly business clothes,
Mm-hmm.
like suits and sweaters and blouses. Yeah.
See, now you telling me all of that story, it's like what makes me think of our 2 daughters. They're 18 years apart, so they're quite a bit. But my younger, whenever Sissy cleans out her closet, the older one, she doesn't care if it's 8 sizes too big. Reagan will always put on Sissy's clothes, right? And always want her shoes. So that right there, me as your reader, resonated on that. And then you saying how you always looked up to her and just I hope, and I know my older daughter will be that for my younger daughter. Like all those conversations, they call each other, they text each other, they spend time together, they don't just separate because they each have a family. So those are amazing things that, like, if you could take the takeaway from your story, would be like, always stay. Sisters are something some people, I don't have a sister and I always wish I did. I always wanted a sister. So hearing the connection between 2 sisters, as a reader, that is something I would thrive for. And having 2 daughters, I want them to have that connection growing up as well. So that's a fantastic story.
Mm-hmm.
So you saw how we just started out with my sister, right? But by thinking about the details about her sister, if she would have written down all that stuff, red hair, hazel eyes, best dressed, because I always took her clothes, and I got voted best
Yeah.
dressed. You know, I mean, after you start writing all those little details down, when you look at it, you're like, I have a story here. That's as simple as it gets when starting, is just thinking about that person, but think about the details and talk about the mannerisms of how even-keeled she was. And to Stacie's point, when we asked you to write down at the bottom of the page a few weeks back, we said write down why this is important, why you think the story is important, is because you hope that future generations of your family understand the importance of having family, understand the importance of having a sister or a brother or a sibling that they can count on. And that's things that can get lost, believe it or not. If you think about the generation we're in right now, and this is why we're really doing this, is that the generation we're dealing with is very self-involved. Brothers and sisters don't spend that much time together anymore because they're constantly playing video games, or they're on their phones, or they're in some kind of screen. And we don't want that. We don't want the specialness of that relationship to be lost in the future. So whether it be someone immediate or someone down the line in your family, if they read that, they're like, man, I wish I had that relationship with my brother or sister, and it's not too late, I still can. I'm gonna give them a call. So it is very important. That's what we're trying to get all of you to understand, is as insignificant as you think your stories are. You said you don't have any exciting stories. They don't have to be exciting. They can be lessons that need to be passed on to future generations of just how important human connection is. So just think about that person that was always in your life, your Larry, that just always showed up, and start writing about them and write out all the details, what they wore, what they acted like, the things they said. Were they funny? Were they serious? Were they, what is it about them that you were drawn to? Because that human connection is something that we need to relearn going forward. Hopefully that little exercise right there kind of helped to get you maybe started about writing about, maybe it's your Larry.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
You can tell that was not easy either.
Thank you.
And it makes me want to call my brother when I leave here. So why don't we, we've got a little bit more time here, so why don't we talk about something a little more, what about, let's go back, and what about the best party you've ever been to or ever thrown? Anybody want to share about that?
Well, mine was my 90th birthday.
Your 90th birthday. You said that just happened.
That was the party of parties.
Yeah. That was just in March, you said.
Pardon?
That was just in March, you said.
March, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was my daughter-in-law. She's very organized, and she planned the whole thing, the decorations, and I invited who I wanted to find, and there were people from all parts of my life who were there. And that was the party of parties.
That's awesome.
And you're already getting good at details there. You talked about your daughter-in-law is very organized.
Right.
Right? That's a good detail. She's very organized, and and you can talk about all that work she put into this.
And she had COVID at the time.
Oh my. That's going to be an important detail for future generations to hear about.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what, that's a great point. I will say that if any of you, and I'm sure you all do, have a COVID story to tell, make sure you write that story, because 50 years from now, people are going to be like, what is this COVID thing? And are you kidding me? You were locked, they locked you down? You couldn't get out? You all have a COVID story to tell, I'm sure, so make sure that is part of your writings. So under your events, the 5 we asked for, if it's not on there, make sure you write down COVID. You'll have plenty of stories to tell about that. We all do.
Yeah, and then a couple of you guys were talking about travel. you know, that's another aspect that you can talk about. We kind of mentioned just different trips. You know, travel has changed so much in a short period of time, and now people won't even, you know, some
Yes.
people won't even travel because they just watch a video
No.
movie on it or something. So
Well, yes, good point, but I got one even better. I know that all of you, if you were to get on a plane, you get dressed up, don't you?
Not anymore.
not anymore.
You know what? I still do. I love
It's
that.
he does.
I love that. Remember, we used to get dressed up, and it was a big deal, and it's just it's amazing to see how air travel went from being this big deal, this amazing opportunity, to now we just wear our PJs or whatever. I mean, the thing. I mean, no, it's just part of everyday life. So I would have loved if my grandparents would have wrote about their first time on a plane. I would have loved to know, what were they wearing? Why were they on that plane? Where were they going? And what was it like to get on a plane back then?
My grandpa used to talk about it like he would take off his suit jacket and they'd hang it up for
Yep.
him, and you know, he would talk about that. And then people were smoking on
Yeah,
planes.
they-
I
yeah,
mean,
they'd get on there.
they would talk about. It's pretty interesting. I mean, he's not here anymore, but he was like, you dress up to get on a plane. You do not. You what do you call it? Like travel clothes. They were like travel clothes is what he referred to them as. Yes.
Yes.
My grandmother went from being born on a farm and horse and buggy to flying in a plane from San Francisco to Hawaii.
That is a story you need to tell. Whatever details you know about that, I would personally love to read about that. I would love to know what was that like, right? And so if you think about what we take for granted today, right? I mean, just even so much as this. What is this going to be like? What we've been flying for years now, but you know what air travel was 30, 40 years ago is so much different than what it is today. Imagine what this will be like 30, 40 years ago. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're just going to be holograms that come up and you'll just be able to interact. Like, you probably won't ever, who knows, right? Maybe it's just a watch that the person appears there and you're like, hey, how's it going? You know, I mean, who knows what that looks like?
I hope not.
Right?
I know.
Yeah. So it's but I know that my grandkids are going to be like, what was it like when he got his first cell phone? Or what was that cell phone like? Like, it was this big, really? You know? And they installed it in his car, like it was mounted in the car. They took half my dashboard out to get this thing in there, you know? And so all those details are going to be fascinating for future generations to read about. So make sure you tell those stories.
I talk about these grandkids, but my mother, who lived to be 93 and very vivacious and she started telling them about when I was a girl, we didn't have water, we had to go to all the things about how she was. We had kerosene lamps. And Mitchell says, how did you watch TV? What?
Right? Yes.
So obviously, they don't, it's a concept they haven't got
Exactly.
around.
No.
Exactly.
Even
And-
we were just talking about, right? We were watching a show with Reagan, and like a commercial comes, she's like, I'm like, does she even know how to sit and wait for a commercial? Like, or wait for the next week for the next episode
Right.
of that series that she's watching? You have to wait a week to know what happens to those characters. We just had that conversation. I'm like, I don't think
No,
knows what that's like.
no, she has no idea.
She just, next episode. Like, she has no idea waiting till next Saturday morning to see what happens on your show.
So we'll say this in wrapping up here, and I don't want this to come across as sad or morbid. This is what Mark Victor Hansen is always talking about, is please, he begs, we're begging, don't take these stories with you. You've got to write them down. future generations need to know the details of your life, believe it or not. I know that some of you think you have not had an exciting life. I can promise you, you are so wrong. The things you've seen, the things you've experienced, the things you've heard, those are all extremely important, and people want to know about those things. So please make sure that you're writing those things down.
And as somebody, my grandparents, I was super close to them. My grandpa's been gone 10 years. My grandma's been gone, 3 maybe? I mean, I spent every weekend with them. I loved them. They were second parents to me. I have nothing. And every day I wish I had something from them. Just something to read, something to go back to, because my daughter was 1 when one of them passed away and 5 when the other one. She will never know what they were like. So
and we would, and the reason we're doing this is because we would love to hand our daughter, when she's 15, 16 years old, a book of, even if it was just a book, a bunch of notes
about mom and pop.
about mom and pop, and we can't do that. So that's why we have devoted the rest of our life in trying to convince all of you to please. It is important. You have had an exciting life, whether you believe you have it or not. You just got to start writing to figure it out.
Because everything you guys have talked about, travel, family, is everything my grandma talked to me about. And I don't have anything to share. So.
And you're quiet, but everybody keeps saying
Yeah.
you've got all the great stories.
Yes.
So sooner or later, you're going to share something.
Yeah.
I've always considered my life as quite exciting. As you said, I stay quiet. And when I was trying to write my own story, I was writing as a guided autobiography because I was attending a class just like this. And we'll pick a topic, and everybody looks at that topic. You go home, do your thing about it, and when we get together, we read what we have written, and each one critique the paper that was just presented. And the way I looked at mine, since I did not know where to start, and of course where I was born was not really important, and what I did is sent out a text to my grandchildren and my children and said, I'm going to start writing a few things that you might like to read about sometime in your life. If you have any questions, any question, no bars, I will answer it for you. Interestingly, all my grandchildren answered, and my daughter and my son did not. So I said, well, I guess they're not interested. And my daughter said, no, Mom, you have so much, I don't know where to start. So what I did with my writing is I just answered the questions that everybody asked. What I'm missing, since I've been reading your paper series, the connecting the people is what I'm missing, and also the details of its individual. Because listening to the way you had presented this, it sounds very exciting, but I was thinking, I'm 89 years old. If I go into all those details, I'll be wasting a lot of my time on details which may not really be affecting them and learning more about their past. But now I have to revise those papers to try to insert some details. And I consider my life quite eventful from the day I was born to the present, Mason Pointe included. Because as late as last night, my daughter said, having seen how you're living now, I think that's what I'd like to do when I retire. I don't want these houses anymore, because she has 5 condos in different cities in the country, and she's busy just going wherever they want to. She said, I think I would just like to have 1 condo, and where I don't have to worry about anything or anybody. That she's actually looking at the way I've lived my life, and it's interesting how we have developed a closeness as they get to learn more about my life. And I'm also trying to write in there where they came into the picture as to how it has affected my own life. And that's how I'm approaching this paper. And I'm learning a lot from what you're presenting, and that's what I have to do, is go back to what I have written before and infuse those things, details and connections.
I love it. That's awesome.
So,
I wish we could have recorded that.
He got it.
It's right here.
He got it.
Oh, that's true. Oh, yeah, we're definitely gonna figure out how to edit that out, because I want that as just as a testimonial, because that was beautiful, right? Because it is in the details where people are really going to connect with the story. They're gonna be wowed by your stories. Whatever you wrote, they're gonna read it and go, wow. But through the details is where they're gonna be connected, where you're probably gonna get them to maybe cry a little, you're gonna get them to laugh a little, you're gonna get them to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that was going on at that time or whatever. So I'm happy to hear that you're seeing how important the details are.
and for everybody's benefit, it's amazing how, as I said, sometimes I'll go to a celebration of life. I went to one and I said, are we talking about the same person? And so it's interesting, sometimes we get a family get together and they will bring up these things. So I said, well, it's nice to hear while I'm still alive and hearing what you're saying, so I could say yes or no, that's me. And it's kind of fun.
Yes, I love that.
So I said, before I die, I will have a celebration of life before I die.
Oh, I love that. That's a great idea. That way you can correct all the stories right then and there.
My daughter gave one for a friend of theirs when they found out that there's nothing more that medicine could offer.
Oh.
She threw a big party, including all the people that she knows that's connected to this person. They held it at the park. And then when he did die, they brought out the video.
Oh.
Oh.
So it was really, really nice.
Oh, wow.
Enjoy it while you could.
That is a great takeaway.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's the lady that made 100 egg rolls a couple weekends ago when her kids were here. They're all down in the pub and Mama's up here making egg rolls.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're out of time
yes.
for today. So is there any last minute questions you might have? Has this been a little more helpful for those that were a little stuck and not knowing where to start?
I was thinking it had to be some big thing, and it's not.
No.
You don't have to.
Nope.
My grandson, I keep talking about, he and his fiance for Christmas gave me an app that you buy this app. It's called Storyworth.
Yep, we know it.
And so I've been doing that since Christmas and I haven't missed a week. And they tell me, I didn't know that, you know, or something. And it's,
Yep.
but they give you the question.
Yeah.
So you just answer the question.
Yes. Yeah, we're very familiar with that app. We love that app. And when you get done with this, if you'll go, I don't know if the app allows you to go back or not, but
Yeah, you get a book about
yeah,
it.
yeah, at the end it gives you, yeah, so if you don't know what you're talking about, yeah, they prompt you with questions, you answer the questions, and then at the end, they kind of put a book together for you. Love it, please, do it. Love that, love any aspect of writing it down. And what we're hopefully gonna help you with is getting a little more involved in the details of each of those questions, and really start to connect with what the story is and what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah.
Great,
For sure.
great point.
Awesome.
I'm doing Storyworth right now too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a Christmas gift from my son, and he chose some of the questions
Oh.
so that I have to answer them.
Yeah, we love that app because it really keeps you accountable, right? Because usually it's your kids that bought it for you. Because we have friends that they've bought it for their parents, and they're like, "Will you force that?" They won't do it, you know. And they're like, they do it for a little bit, and they stop, and I gotta call them and say, "Mom, I want you to keep going with this."
Well, I'm way behind.
Yeah, we hear that a lot. So it's like that. So, but hopefully this helps you to get back to that app and get back to writing that story.
And you haven't missed a day since Christmas?
Yeah,
Wow.
That's great.
That's
a
a,
week, you know.
A week,
A week,
yeah.
you do 1 week, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm always eager to, a couple of times I've changed the question,
uh-huh.
because it said something about the military. I was gonna say, who are you asking about the military? You know, like, who's your best friend in the military? It doesn't pertain to you, so I just
Right.
try to get,
Yeah.
they'll let you put in another question.
Oh.
Good.
Very good.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you everybody that shared. And we love to hear that you're loving the book too. That makes our hearts happy. So we will see you guys next week.
Yeah, okay. Next week's at the same time. I think the following week's at 3, but next week's at 2.
It's an active record.
Look at the 25th day to move.
Oh, you did?
Reading a story you put in the book.
What's next week?
Well, you're gonna love the rest of the books in the series too.
It's an hour later.
Oh.